Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Good morning and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. You are listening to The Morning Break, today only with Liz and Kate. We are very much missing Rachel today.
Yeah.
But hopefully she will join us again just before Christmas in a couple of
Hi,
weeks'
Rachel.
time.
If you're
Hi,
listening.
Rachel, we miss you.
We miss you.
So today, Kate, we are going to be talking about something that we probably are quite well versed to speak about because we have been teaching for a long time now. Both of us for at least 20 years, which I know we've discussed this on the show before, haven't we? And how uncomfortable we are with the...
I don't know. I'm feeling proud of it now.
Well, there's a weird statistic, isn't there? Something like, I think there's something like less than 20% of the profession or something like that have been in it for this long. It might be less than that.
I think because I'm a tutor, I've survived. But hats off to you for still being in the main game.
I mean, it's just,
for the last 8 years I've been a tutor, so
it's just habit at this point. I don't know anything else.
But I'm still very much immersed in a school, so I do see the trends.
Yeah, I don't think it's wildly different what you have, to be honest. I think you're
we have
working
groups
with young people.
Yeah,
it is what it is, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
So do you think it would be fair to say that we have seen over those 20 years our fair share of teaching initiatives?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. In fact, I think we've seen them come in and out in a very cyclical way. And it's got to the point where nothing is new. Like when you've read too many episodes of, what's wrong with my brain today? When you've read too many, I don't know, Red or Glamour magazines, and you go to the hairdressers and you think, I read this back in, 2022, and it's just got a different date on it. It's the same magazine, different date.
It's like the mullet, isn't it? The mullet's made an inexplicable return. It wasn't good the first time round. It's not good this time round either. And yet it's back.
the shag hairstyle. Let's all try to like Farrah Fawcett. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's here. I'm worried that it's going to stay. But we have sat through many an inset, a teach me, a training session, and the course leaders are, I think, quite what's the word I'm looking for? Infectiously positive, and they're very passionate.
I get sucked in every time to every new fad, even when I'm like, hang on, this is just another fad with a different name, but I'm back in.
Yeah, it's like all the pedagogical approaches, they're really enthusiastic about it, and I love teaching and learning stuff. That's totally my bread and butter. That's my thing. I'm a coach at school. I love that stuff. I'm really passionate about it, and I definitely get caught up in these teach me things, and I really want to go and try that. That sounds really, really amazing. But like you said just a minute ago, if we're really truly honest with ourselves, how much of what we're hearing is really truly new?
Yeah,
because I just
Nothing.
feel like sometimes it's just a little rebrand. It's
totally a rebrand. Yeah, and we've got some great examples of that coming up, haven't we?
We're going to talk about a few. So I went out on social media with my kind of friends and colleagues just to kind of gather some responses, and a really wise person messaged me who I trained with 20 years ago, and he said, and what he said is completely correct, the fundamental principles of good learning and good practice are the same. They are always the same. What helps a child to learn ultimately is based in cognitive science, and I do think that we've got a lot better in recent years at looking at the cognitive science, and I do think that's why teaching has improved a lot in recent years, is because we understand the science of learning, the psychology of learning. Good teaching is good teaching regardless, and I don't think it matters what you call it or how you dress it up, but for some reason in education we are obsessed with
gimmicks.
But this is the thing, isn't it? Because I think sometimes good teaching is good teaching, but then there's gimmicks, and I do think there's there's kind of a fork in the road there. And I think as teachers, we can often get caught up in these gimmicky ideas, and that's the thing that makes everyone's eyes roll in an inset or something like that.
But I also think it's with gimmick, it's great to have gimmicks. There's loads of fun gimmicks, you know, we're going to talk about them more later, but I've really enjoyed things like in the past, gimmicks like snowballing and, you know, all the kind of like silly, crazy ways of bringing lessons to life. But that's all fun. I think it's when
can you just explain snowballing? Because for anybody who's kind of new to the profession, and I'd completely forgotten about snowballing until you brought it up.
I will. But just before I forget my point in a perimenopausal way, you know, I love a gimmick every now and then, and it's great so that, you know, the students have something new and novel to enjoy as well, although they all come around again. I think the reason people sort of roll their eyes or feel world weary, as we've probably both done sometimes in the training sessions, sometimes by younger people as well, is when people come in with a gimmick and they say, right, this is going to be the way we all do this all the time this year. And you're going, well, we did it some of the time, a little bit back in like 5 years ago or whatever, and it was all right. But what, we're going to all do it all the time because that fad passed. And I think that's the whole school approach or the whole department approach to something. It could be anything. It could be laminators. It could be snowballing. It could be thinking and reading skills. It could be whatever it is. I think it's so important to allow teachers to have that freedom to pick and choose from these fashions and gimmicks. But snowballing, I actually really like that. It was you know, when you do your teacher training courses, your graduate teacher training courses, or your in-school training courses, or I did a PGCE, PCE, you know me, whatever it's called as well. And I remember it was actually quite fun because sometimes it was really boring. It would be death by PowerPoint and we'd all get like kids and be really bored. And sometimes somebody would come in and say, this is how you make it more fun. And they'd give us all a piece of paper and we'd have to draw a circle on it. And in the middle of the circle, we had to write down a word. It could be for any subject. I don't know, like a science idea or history or maths. And then I can't remember exactly, but you scrambled it up into a ball and then you lobbed it at somebody, hit them in the head, and then they, you know, needed to put their eye out, and then they would write down something they remember about that subject or subject specific terminology, and then you'd or another idea, or, you know, like a bit of creativity, and then you'd scramble it up and throw it at somebody else, and inevitably people write rude words on it and messages to each other, and it goes around the room. And I remember once,
monitor that in any way, shape or form, can you? You've got absolutely no guarantee that any of the kids were writing down what you asked them to write down.
But
There's no guarantee that they were learning anything. They were having a jolly nice time.
Well, we were as teaching as, you know, training to be teachers, students, and teachers in training. But I remember trying it out in an English lesson. It was actually towards Christmas, and I remember our lovely head Andrew Smith walking past, and I don't know if he clocked it, but it must have just looked like a sea of snowballs and paper flying around the room. I think he might have just turned a blind eye and walked on. He probably thought, what chaos is happening in there? But I mean, it was a lot, you know, they all picked it up afterwards, put it in the bin. I didn't even read them to see if they'd all been doing it on task. I was just like, well, that was a bit lively. But then imagine if at a training session, someone came in and went, right, this year, we are all going to focus on snowballing across the curriculum. There's going to be 5 minutes of snowballing every lesson. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that is how it sometimes feels when people rebrand something and bring it back in again.
Well, on those lines, so I do think the school that we worked at together, we did have two assistant heads at the time who were absolutely passionate, enthusiastic teaching and learning people. They were, and it was very easy to get caught up in the ideas. And I always looked forward to them running an inset because they all were like such fun ideas that they would come with. And I'd come away from those insets and I'd be like, right, I'm going to do this. And I remember one particular inset, and now obviously like 15 years on, I'm looking back on this and being like, what were we thinking? But I don't know if anybody who's listening remembers the Play-Doh phase that we had in education about 15 years ago. And
I remember who ran that, yeah.
And like basically what what happened. We came in, we all sat at our tables on an inset day, and we all had a pot of Play-Doh, and we were given tasks to do. And the concept behind it, which I totally get, was allow students to engage with the topics, but in a more creative way. So get them to make a model of a character from Macbeth, or get them to, you know, make a model that represents a theme or something like that, rather than write it down, because that's much more likely, you know, your kinesthetic learners or whatever learning styles, there's another fad, that you're more likely to engage them. Absolutely, totally get the theory behind it. So much money in the budget was spent on everyone having Play-Doh in their classrooms and things like that. I think it lasted probably 3 months.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that much. The Play-Doh was dry, like it wasn't usable. It actually, when you had a class of 30 students with Play-Doh out in front of them, that just wasn't reasonably manageable. And ultimately, what were they learning? Really?
Yeah, and I think it, when we were at that school, there was a lovely mission for it to be all about thinking skills, and I think that's important.
100% that's important.
Creativity, variety, student-centered, all of that sort of thing. Okay, it went, you know, it goes from one extreme to the other, and then you get the old school coming back in. So I think at the moment we're having a bit of more of an old school laminator fashion phase. I say fashion phase, but it's much more 5-minute sort of silent starter. And then I don't, as a tutor, need to do this so much. I don't even have a, what's it called for laminator things in the room? You know, a laminator. OHP. I've never actually used one in my life.
You've never used an OHP? Oh,
well, this is what, like, never have I ever as a teacher. As you say, I have been teaching. Well, I'd say I've been teaching in classrooms in schools and colleges for over 15 years, and then I've been probably, I think, and then tutoring for probably, and supply teaching and things like that for about the last 8. But I'm so old school. Like, in my flat, there's a record player on the shelf behind me. I was the slowest to get the leggings trend, the hair straightener trend, never really got the hang of it. All the trends, I'm always far behind. And it was the same with me in teaching. It's not that I was resistant, I just seemed to be completely clueless. So I've never used a laminator. I think I've used a guillotine once. And I've never, there's smart boards. I never had a smart board in my room. I was in the huts at the school we were at. So I didn't have a smart board, so I never got to play with a smart board. And when I did try,
I don't think.
Did you have one?
No, I don't think so. I think the first time I had a smart board,
they're impossible to write on anyway.
I had a projector. We had projectors.
I never had a projector, and I was quite relieved because my handwriting's awful.
Yeah,
modelling
not
on the
an
spot.
OHP, but just like a normal,
the projector. Oh yeah, projector.
Projector, so you could project like your PowerPoint or whatever it was that pointed at your whiteboard.
For me, OHPs are like aliens, and they're all over our school, and the students are doing well. The results are great. This new initiative they've got with everybody using them, and the students copying the teacher and learning how to do the modelling and doing that. But modelling we've had for years. We just used to do it on the computer, didn't we? Typing it and projecting it.
I think like obviously smart boards are really useful if you have the time, if they work. I have a smart board in my room now, it doesn't work.
Not very smart.
So it's not very smart.
It's a thick board.
It's just a screen ultimately, because it doesn't, like, it's not, I can't touch anything and it at work, it's not interactive. So fundamentally it's just a very expensive projector. Which means I can't do, like, I would need a visualizer, which I don't have and I really need, to do like live annotating and things like that. I do think live annotating is really useful.
I think I might, we did ask one for our office, but our office is so small to use one in there. But but my fellow tutor used one a little bit with some students in classrooms, but for me tutoring's a little bit different. You can sit right next to them and model.
Yeah, you don't need it.
You don't need it.
But
but that's the other thing. But that's become a whole across the department initiative, but I just wonder how long it'll last until it all goes back to student-centered group work a bit more and all of that stuff.
Well, that's another thing. That's another fad that we went through for a period of time, where it was all about teacher talk and minimizing teacher talk. And I think the model was 80-20. So the students should be working for 80% of the lesson, and you shouldn't be talking for longer than 20% of the lesson. And I remember falling foul of that so many times, because sometimes there needs to be a lot of instruction in order for
it's totally reversed now. It's gone the way now where,
but COVID did that, I think.
Yeah, it's literally gone back to the students just wanting to be told what to write, doing the modelling. The problem with that is I'm encountering with some of the tutees coming on, if I'm absolutely honest, and like I said, totally respect the fact that this is a proven technique and that everyone's adopting it. The amount of times I like literally just this week, and I think I've talked to you about this before, but I had a group of 4 Year 11 boys came to come and do a bit of creative writing. And I found a picture of a Victorian Christmas, lovely, colourful. There's a mother sort of in a long dress hanging things on the tree, snowy outside the window, little kids in night dresses. And we talked about the 1800s. We talked about the fact that you can use it as a springboard. You don't just have to describe what's in the picture. So I said, you can do anything you like. You can describe a modern Christmas. You could have perhaps something dangerous is happening. Maybe an ember's come out of that open fireplace, and unbeknownst to them, it's making its way across the rug. And at the last minute, perhaps someone treads on it and puts out the fire. Or I said, or maybe there could be an absent brother or father, and you could write about him in the trenches, looking back on World War I. And they started sort of like thinking about it and doing like drawings and stuff. And while they were doing that, I was looking at World War II. One of them said, I said, oh, have you been doing the Blitz in history? And they said, oh, we don't know what the Blitz is. I was a bit shocked. So I showed them some pictures of the Blitz and said, I want to see what it was like to be a child in the Blitz at Christmas. And they said, oh, didn't they stop the fighting at Christmas? And I said, not every Christmas. So there was bombing in London in Christmas World War II one year, and they've got pictures in this museum website. And you can see boys their age playing cards in the tube station, real photographs, and you can see the contents of a stocking that was just paper animals, and they weren't allowed to wrap presents that year. And there's an old woman sleeping in a wine cellar. And then there's a really amazing picture of lots of people squashed, men, women, children, old men, old women, all squashed asleep in the tube station where the air raid signal's gone off at night at Christmas. So I showed them some pictures, and they looked back at the Victorian one. I said, but the world's your oyster with this. You can do anything. You've had some examples. You could do anything with this picture. And at the end of the session, they'd done their plans. And I said to them, okay, what ideas did you come up with? And every single one of them said that they were going to do the Blitz. And I thought, okay, great, they're inspired by the pictures, but it was the fact that, they were going to do a Christmas scene in World War II, and then they were going to do a contrast with people sleeping in the underground. And I thought, great, but that's so weird that they just literally ran with that one suggestion. They didn't go with another suggestion, or they didn't. Do you see what I mean? I think they've lost that confidence to do something different now.
I think they, as a generation, young people now are passive consumers.
They want to please us rather than. And I was hoping that they'd come up with something original. Each of them, maybe one of them does the Blitz, the others do World War I.
I don't know if it's even necessarily people pleasing, because I don't think that's how they operate. I think they are passive consumers of all information in their lives.
Yeah.
What they spend their time doing on their phones all the time, it's very, very one way and not interactive. And I've
never had that before, where all four had the exact same thing.
Yeah. Because we have definitely lost a little bit of creativity. Kate, can we have a quick word from our sponsors before we continue the discussion?
Absolutely. Okay. So we'll start with Hachette Learning. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development, books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit www.hachetteLearning.com to explore the full range of titles. Join BET, which is BETT, for the biggest week in education from the 21st to the 23rd of January 2026 and Excel London. With immersive workshops, thought-provoking speakers, hundreds of hours of CPD accredited content, cutting-edge technology, and unrivaled networking, there's no opportunity quite like it for educators. Get your free ticket today by visiting uk.bet.show.com. Teachers Talk Connect. Teachers Talk Connect is back, our annual CPD and networking extravaganza. Join the TTR team on Saturday, 14th of March in Manchester. Tickets are free. What are you waiting for? Head over to ttradio.org/connect2026.
Okay, thank you so
And back
much.
to the studio.
And back to the studio. One of the things that so I went away and read a lot of blog posts and things in various different educational publications about teaching fads and fashions. And what I noticed, which I thought was really interesting about the shift in that, was that like 2010 to 2015 tended to be like a really faddy period of education where there were a lot of gimmicks, and I saw the phrase in one of the blogs that I read that said teachers are often victims to the bandwagon effect, and I was like, that is absolutely spot on. That is what happens. And I think that does come a lot sometimes with like educational consultants and things like that who are going around and you know, giving these ideas in various different places, and it just kind of catches on a little bit. And it's little things, like things that have wound me up over the years. Like I've got a real bugbear about lesson objectives. Like, not as a concept, like I get it, your lesson should have direction. Totally. Do not disagree with that. You should know what you want the students to learn over the course of a lesson, a learning episode, whatever.
Absolutely, whether it's how to plan, how to generate
the
ideas.
The obsession that we had with they have to have the learning objective on the board, otherwise no learning will take place. Otherwise they don't know what they're going to learn. If they don't know what they're going to learn without me putting a learning objective on the board, I really am failing as a teacher. I shouldn't have to put a learning objective up to prove it. But it was like, you would fail a lesson observation back in the day if you didn't have a lesson observation up on the board, or it wasn't written down in the students' books. And we went through a phase with that of it being the almost sum as well. So all students will be able to do this, most students will be able to do this, some students will be able to do this, because that was your explicit differentiation. And again, I think that's still kind of used as a concept. But again, I think a lot of these things, we don't have to show them. It's a little bit like marking and verbal feedback stamps and things like that. All of these things have kind of infiltrated because it's all about us proving that we're thinking about these things and that we're doing these things. Not that behind the scenes there is a teacher who is thinking about the learning of their class. Absolutely. I want to think about, what do I want them to learn today? How am I going to get them to do that? What methods am I going to use in order to get them to get to the place where I want them to have that information by the time they leave my lesson today, tomorrow, whatever. And alongside that, the 4-part lesson plan, the obsession with absolutely every single lesson having to fit into this 4-part.
This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit hachetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Teachers, have you heard of Bet UK 2026? It's the world's biggest education and technology event, and it's completely free for educators. From keynote speakers and panel sessions to CPD accredited workshops and networking, Bet UK 2026 is where educators from across the globe come together to share ideas, spark inspiration, and find solutions that fuel our mission to drive better education globally. Get your free ticket today at betshow.com.
The reason I hated the 4-part lesson plan was because the beauty of teaching is that if a child asks an interesting question, or God forbid teachers use something you didn't know, you can't go down that trajectory too long because you have to bring it back to that mini plenary. It's too restrictive and it stops the student. It stops you being able to listen to your students. It prevents the students having creativity, and it prevents students learning from their peers because it's just too rigid. And I don't like those 4-part plenary nonsense lessons either, I'll say for the record.
And it's the idea that all learning then has to take place in a 45-minute window, which it doesn't. There's so much learning that takes place over 2-3 lessons or whatever, because you've got to gradually build them up towards it. And I do think we're better at understanding that now, because we have kind of done away with this expectation. We do use terms like learning episode rather than lesson, and looking at them in isolation from each other. And there are some elements of teaching which might be seen as fads, but that actually are quite useful, because the cognitive science that they are rooted in is quite useful. So I've heard, like, I love mini whiteboards. I absolutely love mini whiteboards. Like, I know they're not for everybody, and that's
I like them.
That's fine, because you're in charge of what's going on in your own classroom. If you do what you want to do with your class, as long as you're making judgments that's good for the learning of your children, that is fine. But I love a mini whiteboard. For AFL, a minute assessment for learning, just in case anyone's listening from outside of the profession, is really, really useful to just do a quick sweep of your room and know that people have got a concept or they haven't got a concept, and be able to help, or just to check prior learning, or whatever it is. It's really useful, and it's really low stakes for the kids as well, because if they make a mistake, they can rub it off, and there's no pressure. Whereas when they're writing it in their book in pen, for some of them, they don't go through that process because they're scared of getting it wrong. So mini whiteboards take that way. I really, really passionately believe
I
in mini
observed a
whiteboards.
lesson recently. When I say observed, I was just in there to give a bit of support to the teacher, and because I was free. And she used mini whiteboards, and it was great. I mean, there was a few that got into the whole clicking the pen thing and the doodling.
But that's with anything. They'll doodle in their books.
But literally a couple, and they just had to have a word, and then they stopped. But they were using them, they were engaged. She did do group work as well. So to be fair, it wasn't all visualizers or anything like that in that session at all. It was varied. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's not saying everybody has to use mini whiteboards, everybody has to do visualizers. It's almost saying, these are the tools we've got, this is what's in your classroom, and you listen to your class and go with what works for your class. You know, don't feel like you've got to do it just because we've told you have to do this, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, another thing that I think is a really positive move, and again, people will say that it's a fad, maybe it is, and I'm sure, but like a do now task, a silent do now task as part of your routine, so that everybody, and school wide, having that as a policy, so the students get used to coming in, sitting down, getting on with a task that they should, if a do now task is done properly, they should be able to do independently without asking any questions or anything like that. They should, and again, that's something that I like. I'm sure it's going to be a fad, like many other things in education.
But it works, so it will come round and round. But again, it's nothing to sort of wow people about in Inset Day. We have this new thing we're going to rename and call it something else. It's like, remember, you may or not have done, maybe they should start with, you may have already tried this in your teaching, especially if you've been in the profession for a while, but you may have forgotten about it, or this might be new to some people, but this is a method that can work at certain times in the year, you know, or occasionally, not for everybody all the time.
I think we're just so focused on, like, the term quick win. We hear the term quick win at insets, you know, this is a quick win, this is something that we can do, which is fine. I like a quick win. I think that's efficient and that's great, but it's got to have some value to the student. It's got to add value in some way, shape or form. It's not got to be the playing with Play-Doh because that's the new in thing.
Or or it's entertaining and it stops them being bored for 2 seconds.
Well, one of the blogs that I read about it said, we just have this constant again, this is coming to the forefront a lot at the moment. It's being thrown at teachers. Well, if you made it more interesting, maybe they'd want to come to school. And it's like, do you know what? Not everything.
We're not clown babysitting entertainers.
But absolutely, and not everything can be interesting. It's just, but sometimes
it's
when
okay
they're
to be bored and do some work sometimes as well, you know.
But that's life, isn't it? You know, it's not.
Persevere with it.
Absolutely, and so, but I think that's where a lot of the faddy and gimmicky things come in. Is this obsession that we have that kids have got to be engaged and they've got to be excited and it's got to be whiz bang, like, you know, they come in and they're like, woo. And I read one that
was 100% my teacher training year, like pen of doom, put the pen in the middle and spin it, and they have to walk around in a circle, and if the pen, I think that was I used it for my Robert interview actually, and it landed on a student, and then you say, right, you need to answer a question in the plenary about the lesson kind of thing. And And yeah, it was fun and everything. It was all right, but I mean, you can't do that necessarily. Like, it's another fad, basically.
I read some examples of things that teachers had done. So there was a blog post where a teacher said, you know, I'd baked cupcakes for all of the kids in my class, and I'd attached a balloon to them, and the deputy head was walking past, and I was like, come and have a look at what I've done. And the deputy head said, oh, that's really nice, you've put so much effort into that. And what are they learning? Like that. And the person who wrote this blog, I wish I could remember her name, said, do you know what, it just made me, and they weren't asking me that question to be passive aggressive or unpleasant, they were asking me that question because they were genuinely interested. Or why are you doing this?
Why was she doing it?
She said, I couldn't answer that question because I didn't have one.
Really?
They weren't learning something from it. And that's the thing. And so much of the teaching sometimes with these fads is focusing on the what rather than the why. Why are they doing it? Are they getting something out of it? If they're not getting something out of it, why are we doing it?
I mean, baking people cupcakes, though, is different from like snowballing, where they're actually meant to be writing down terminology. Or what was the one you were talking about? Where I actually kind of want to try this if there wasn't so much chewing gum probably underneath there. Sticking lesson ideas under the seat. Yeah,
there was a phase that we went through of, like, again, part of this, like, really engaging students with their learning. And it was like, so the challenge task was stuck on the underneath of their seat. So if they got as far as doing the challenge task, they would find it underneath their seat to get there. Or, you know, they had activities where I remember a maths teacher in my last job, she had, you know, they would move places and they'd sit in different seats, and the different seats would have different, like, questions underneath them and everything. And I'm like, okay, I mean, that is based on,
I just picture the students going, ew, miss, there's like loads of gross stuff stuck on.
It's just a little bit chaotic, isn't it? Just makes me feel a bit stressed in terms of like a classroom management situation. Just got kids like changing seats, finding things underneath, like blah. But
I'd quite like to be a fly on the wall in the teacher training courses at the moment, because like I said, when I was training, I was surprised at, it was either really boring death by PowerPoint and very strict in terms of don't layer, don't do this, don't do that, you know, or it was, how can you engage your students with a sensory lesson where there's something to see, hear, smell, touch? And we're talking secondary and sixth form. Well, actually, we're talking sixth form college, which is like, when at sixth form college do you have a time to bring in a candle and it probably set the school on fire or whatever it is to make it sensory? And the other big thing was, we were told, it's a really good idea, this is a real session, it's a really good idea to rearrange the desks and make like a big X shape in the room. So when they come in, they go, oh, this learning environment is not what I expected. What that lasts for 2 seconds and then they can't see the board or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So there was a lot of effort that went into making it interesting for the students. Whereas now the students, it's gone from one extreme to the other though. I want the students to be like surprised, engaged, like, you know, just to quote Dead Poet Society again, when someone gets on a desk and does something a bit risky or shocking, health and safety wouldn't let us do that now. But it's all very controlled. But I think, so there is room for these little silly fun gimmicks, especially, I don't want the schools to get too robotic and passive and boring. But at the same time, it's different horses for different courses, and it's sprinkling them in rather than taking a whole approach, right? We're going to do this, we're all going to do that. Like, it's a big innovative thing and no one's ever done it before. And yeah.
And I think there's a place for lots of things, you know, that are fads and ways that we use them. I don't, you know, like I've never been a big fan of knowledge organisers. Like, when knowledge organisers started to be used a few years ago, that was something that
Hang on, tell me about this, because that's not going in about knowledge organisers.
Oh, knowledge organisers. Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago, it became the thing. So, like, for every scheme of work, you had a knowledge organiser, and it had your keywords on it. It had effectively the what the students were going to learn. I can't even remember.
Oh yeah, I just wasn't sure what it was called, but I know what you mean.
It was something that the students would be given at the beginning of a topic, and so therefore they had their keywords on it and things like that. Certain elements of that I can see were useful, but ultimately what knowledge organisers ended up being is very, very overwhelming documents with lots and lots of language on, lots of words, yes, it was split into boxes, but they are not user friendly. And I think ultimately, who are they really for? And that's ultimately what was my issue. But a lot of teacher time went into creating these knowledge organisers for units of work, and I just didn't like, of all the things that people could have been spending their time doing, I didn't feel that that was useful enough. And the people that it theoretically should have been the most useful for as a concept would have been your students who struggle more, but it would have been too overwhelming for them to use. And so then who is it really for? So that, I mean, I might be alone on that, because they're still quite popularly used, knowledge organisers. So
things like that, though, are what helps with helps cause teacher burnout. I mean, I heard a colleague just casually said to me the other day that all teachers need a secretary, and I think people have been saying that for a long time to deal with the admin. But before we say anything else, I want to ask you about something that I made a note of, because you mentioned when we were sort of discussing, what topic we're going to do, you were sort of listing off things, and you mentioned, I know because we're English teachers, so this is subject specific, but you mentioned a gimmick that I've never heard of as an English teacher, and I'm intrigued about, called kung fu punctuation. What is kung fu punctuation? I think I need to know about this one.
I can't actually remember, again, because it's very faddy, can't actually remember the learning value of it. But fundamentally it was getting so every piece of punctuation had a hand gesture that went with it, and I did do it for an interview lesson once, and I did.
This is secondary schools.
Secondary school. Well, you say that, but actually my son is now coming home doing it, and so he goes full stop.
Oh, I quite like that. Full stop.
Exclamation mark. Question mark.
What was that? What was that exclamation mark? Something like that?
No, it's like that. Like that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so it's fun. Like, it's very interactive, and it, and he loves, and it is really helping him. I'm seeing like the expression that he reads with and things like that, and he'll go full stop at the end of a sentence, or he'll go question mark. And
don't offer. I'm actually going to use this with everyone from year 7 to 11 in my tutor groups, because it'll annoy them, and it'll be so cheesy. They'll be like, "Oh, please don't do that, miss," and I'll be going, "You could use an exclamation mark." Oh my god,
it's really cute in a 6-year-old, but
at least they'll remember. I think it would be funny to wind up the teenagers, like when you try and rap and they go, "Please don't do that," and you're like, "Well, now you're listening."
I think the thought behind it is that they think about their punctuation carefully, which I would say is something we need. I think our literacy levels, are quite low, and in my work as a governor, I've been going into my son's primary school, and I've been looking at writing and the quality of writing that students are doing in year 6, because they're so hot housed on it. And you've got like 80-90% of kids like who are writing capital letters at the beginning of their sentences, their spelling is predominantly good, and then they come to secondary school, and by the end of year 7 we do not have 80% of children writing like that.
I agree with that. Yeah,
there's a massive slide in our literacy. Now that's a whole other show.
I've seen that, because I've been looking at 11 plus like students doing their 11 plus sort of practice things, and they were all using like semicolons, things like that, and then they get to year 11 and they're bored, or they see it's something intimidating to use a semicolon, or they're bored of it.
I think
so it might be quite fun to jazz it up again. What's semicolon? I'm on the bandwagon here. What is it?
Like that, so a punch and a slide of the hand like that.
It reminds me of, do you remember Napapa the rapper? Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you want to test me, I'm sure you're fine. Anyway, the things the teacher, a shoulder reacher. Oh, it's classic. But I think that would be great.
I think I can see the theory in that it would get them to stop and think about it, which is something I don't think that they do now, because they're constantly messaging. They message without capital letters, and they've got really bad habits ingrained. So something like kung fu punctuation, I can
to bring it into a I know this sounds like, I know it's a damn slippery wagon. I mean, after the show I'll probably go, I'm never going to use kung fu punctuation, but at the moment I'm thinking, actually, I mean, they're not going to get up and do it, and if I do it they're going to roll their eyes, but actually giving it a bit of humour, bringing it into the real world a bit, so it's not just this kind of unknown thing
Passive.
they forget to use, is
Stop
actually not
being
bad idea.
passive.
Would I ever suggest somebody goes to an inset day and goes, everybody needs to do Kung Fu punctuation at some point this term? No. We want to see some Kung Fu punctuation in your lessons.
It comes down to that idea, doesn't it, that you have to make decisions within your own classroom that are in the best interests of the students that are in front of you. That
individual students.
that
Some students, absolutely.
Yeah, and you need to individualise and cater for whatever is going to work for them, whatever pace that may be or whatever. Another thing that really wound me up for a really long time, we have moved away from it. So now, obviously differentiation is, as a concept, is a really, really important element, because nobody's the same. It's not a one size fits all approach. You cannot just expect everybody to be able to do the same. You have to put strategies in place to make sure that everyone can access their learning and everyone can be sufficiently challenged. Like that, differentiation as a concept, don't have an issue with.
Yeah.
What I always had an issue with, and I really I fought against this for a long time, and I was always quite heavily criticised for it. I hated the phase that we went through where you had differentiated worksheets in different colours to give to different students. I hated it.
It was very time consuming. I mean, they have overlays now, don't they?
But it's not. But it's not. It isn't that. It wasn't that element of it that wound me up. It was the, here you go, you're the weak student.
Oh, I see.
Student.
The actual
you're
text.
The strong student.
And sorry. So not just the colours. So you're not talking about dyslexia coloured
sheets.
No.
I'm talking about the phase that we went through where you had to have completely explicitly different work
3 different
for
sheets,
the different levels, and they were different coloured sheets to make it easy for you as a teacher to hand out. But what it did was it stigmatised students, and I really rallied against it. I hated it. I
remember that phase.
And I
don't think I actually did it. I think I just ignored it. I think it was one of the ones I might have ignored.
For it, for not doing it, and I was like, I don't like singling students out. I feel really, really uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
And now, fast forward like 10, 15 years, we're doing ordinarily available provision, because everybody else is now saying we shouldn't be singling students out. We should be making it the normal practicing classroom that everyone can access their learning.
But I hate to tell you this, it's going to come back again.
I'm sure it will.
Next year at Inset Day, they'll be going, right, what we're going to do is, and you'll be like, no, not again. I wore this last season. I wore these Gucci boots. And then the heel came off.
If it comes back again, I will rally against it again, because
it's like mum jeans. Mum jeans.
I absolutely hate it.
Here we go.
So that is a hill I will die on. The other hill I will die on is and I don't see it ever stopping, but I absolutely loathe spelling tests. I loathe them. I loathe the way that they're done. Because I think a child can learn 10 spellings by rote and write them down correctly, get 10 out of 10, and then when they go off to use that in their work, they're not spelling those words correctly.
Okay, right.
It's what are they gaining from learning something by rote in that manner, in a way that they're never going to use
I don't really
words?
do those as a tutor.
It should be in sentences. If we're going to test them on their spelling, they should be writing them in sentences, and that is a hill I will die on, because it winds me up so much. I don't think it's a good measure.
I don't know. I haven't seen. Are they still doing regular spelling tests in your school?
It has been something that has been done at my school recently, and I also just think, and I really hate, like with things like that as well, getting people to read their scores out and record them in a mark book and things like that. I'm like, why humiliate people? Like, we don't need that. Don't need that. Some people find spelling really straightforward, and some people find it really difficult. I don't agree.
I always say to students not to worry about, obviously it's good to obviously try and improve your spelling, but I say never worry about asking me for a spelling or for helping me figure out spelling with you, or even if we need to look up a spelling, because although I'm an English teacher and I've obviously passed degrees and masters in English and stuff like that, I've never, when I was young, I wasn't great at spelling and grammar. I love the creativity and the ideas, but I remember having to write out disappoint and disappear 5 times, and I think I remember it because it was taken out, as you say, it was taken out of it. I'd written a story and the teacher had loved it, and she'd put outstanding on it and in capitals, and I was all excited. Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Saunders, if you're still listening to this radio show.
Impact of a teacher.
Yeah. So yeah, I did a really good creepy story, and I was really into it, but I'd spelt disappointment. So after she gave me all the praise, she just put under it, and now write disappoint and disappear out because I had my double letters mixed up. And I just copied those out. I was a bit surprised. I was like, okay. I copied them out and I never forgot them. And when the same students come in and they make mistakes, I'll say to them, oh, these are the words that I got wrong. You just have to remember this and this. I might ask them, maybe try writing them out a couple of times if they've used them in their work, just to sort of get, the hang of it, or however many times they need.
So that's habit building. That's different. That's a different type of learning.
That's how I would do it. Yeah.
That's habit building. Because
but it doesn't always work for everybody, but sometimes it does,
That's how we learn. We learn by building habits. And again, as a coach, when I'm going in with teachers and talking about the whole point of our coaching process is that it's finding things that you can do, that you can build into habit as part of your classroom practice and your classroom routine. And that's again, quick win, as a phrase, which I'm not a massive fan of, but I get the concept of. But it's got.
But you're talking about consolidating learning. You're talking about consolidating learning by revisiting something as well.
And another thing that we talk
about. But that can happen organically. It doesn't have to be a fad. It can it's once you know that as a teacher, you can put it into your lessons organically. You don't have to organically.
But that's the cognitive science part of it, isn't it? It's a bit like interleaving. Like I think interleaving is really, really important because it's all about the forgetting curve. It's all about making sure that we're coming back to it. And again, it's establishing that habit, finding a place for it in long-term memory. That's the cognitive science of it. I absolutely understand that, but I do think people misunderstand what interleaving is, or how it's actually supposed to be really strategic. Interleaving, it's not supposed to be just done randomly. You're supposed to time it so that it's before a student will forget something, but a lot of people don't use it that way and misunderstand the concept of. So again,
can you talk us through that a little bit more slowly? So what is it for people who might not have heard of it, and how
interleaving? So interleaving is the concept that you come back to a topic after a period of time, or you come back to a concept or something like that before a student forgets about it, to while it's in their short-term memory. So then you jog their memory and you keep revisiting these things at intervals, maybe slightly longer intervals in between, until it's established in their long-term memory. And so as a concept, as cognitive science, that makes perfect sense. And it's something, but it's a phrase, interleaving, that's bandied around in education a lot. Oh, that's interleaving, without it actually being real interleaving. It's just, oh, you've just revisited a topic. You haven't done this strategically. You haven't thought, I'm doing that before we get to that point, or before they forget about it. It's conveniently ended up in the curriculum at that point. You need a starter activity, and let's just shove that in there.
Okay.
And it is.
How would you advise people to be more strategic about it?
That's part of your long-term planning, isn't it? It's you've got to be aware of where your students are going long term, not just kind of living lesson to lesson or week to week. You've got to right, okay, in a week's time, I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to pull them back to that. I'm going to remind them of that term that I taught them, or that concept that I taught them, or that character that we talked about, or whatever it is, before they forget it. And again, you can do it as a do now activity with mini whiteboards. So look at all my fads: interleaving, do now, mini whiteboards. But you can move it just super duper quick, so you can see who remembers it, how many people remember it, because then for intervention purposes, you go, right, okay, 70% of you remember it, 30% of you don't. That's not enough of you for I need to address that. I need to make sure that
what are they remembering, what are they forgetting?
Absolutely.
And also thinking about, like, say for years 10 and 11 particularly, when the assessments are coming up, when it's probably the best time to sort of, before it gets right to the end of that cycle, perhaps bringing it up a little bit earlier so that then it can go into the long-term memory.
Absolutely, it is. It's just about thinking about how they embed it as a part of habit. It's something that they know and something they can call on. So it's not reteaching. You're not reteaching it. You are revisiting it, but you're revisiting it in a manner that's designed to jog their memory and designed to get them to think about something. And again, it's a concept based in cognitive science, which absolutely is very, very valuable.
I just wanted to say as well, if you, you were mentioning the mini whiteboards. I'm such a sucker for enthusiasm, right? We've got some mini whiteboards in the office where we tutor, my colleague and I, and and we had a whiteboard in the room for ages, but it got permanent marker on it, and we couldn't find the stuff to get it off. And I went to order some, and it was really expensive. And I was thinking, you know what? But you know what managed to clear the board, and which is good for the mini whiteboards as well? Purdy and Fig. And I know we shouldn't advertise things. I've been using that, and it makes the office smell lovely as well.
You don't even need that bit of hand sanitizer.
Yeah, but it's really so much more fun to spray it with like a Christmassy scent. Anyway, so I've started using the whiteboards, the little whiteboard on the stand, and mini whiteboards again as well. So I think what I'm going to do is actually start doing that more, but I'm going to use it for the mnemonics and the acronyms for questions. Like we talked about P, how that was a fad, and then Peel was a fad, and then PQA was a fad.
It's just,
and we've
again,
now
different names for the
we've
same
now
thing.
got P, Q, explode 3 times, sandwich it back to the question, which no one remembers unless you sort of do it every now and then anyway. So I might just every now and then just be like, right, mini whiteboards, what order do we do the questions in for paper 2? Because they have to do them in a certain order now for time reasons and mark reasons, and what codes do you need? Do your teachers want you to try and remember? But I think there can be a bit death by too many, like mark up the question too many different ways. Because the students,
acronyms
they're like, I can't remember that, miss.
I really believe in an acronym. I think an acronym can be
like
really...
DeForester.
yeah, absolutely. Like,
never fails. Some people hate it, some people love it, but never fails.
Because for students as well, obviously we have our subject, which we think is really important, and they're with us, and we're kind of bombarding them with things for our subject. But for them, they're doing 8, 9, 10 different subjects, and they're going their teachers are going, you need to remember this, you need to remember this.
There can be too many acronyms for too many subjects, though.
There can be, but I also think by reducing the volume of learning that they have to do to acronyms, that does make it a little bit more manageable for them.
Yeah.
So I understand, yes, they can become overwhelmed, but I just think doing 8 or 9 different subjects is overwhelming anyway. So
that's
anything
true.
that we can do to try and streamline that, that's what I talk to my classes about all the time. I'm like, we're streamlining. We are looking at ways that we can condense, reduce, make it accessible for your brains, so that when you're in the exam, you have found the most effective and efficient way for you to store this information. We don't have to, reduce it completely so it's not useful, but it doesn't have to be the massive volume that it is in its entirety. We need to find ways to make that easier for you.
And again, it depends on the student. So I have a student who's visually impaired, extremely visually impaired, and it was, how's he going to do his spoken language? Is it going to be braille on cards? Is it going to be prompts from his TA? What's it going to be, sort of thing? He's got an amazing memory. So he decided he wanted to memorize his entire speech and deliver it in front of his class, because he chose to do that. And he got a distinction talking about music and doing an anecdote about a rock festival. But some people find that I know this was a big fad, and actually I think it's a good one for people who like drawing. Little diagrams on cards can really help you remember quotes, or creating top trump cards. But if students hate drawing, the last thing they want to be doing is, so I've had some students go, yeah, I want to draw on the cards and play with the cards, and other students going, oh, miss, I hate drawing, I don't want to draw, can I just do it like this?
It's offering it, isn't it? It's about
offering the fad, offering the opportunity,
and saying this is a way you could do it. It's not the be all and end all.
Yeah,
it's not like you must do it this way, but try it out, see if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, we'll look at something else, because not everybody's brain works in the same way. And again, it's coming down to that cognitive science. I did I found another thing which I thought was really, really interesting. Oh, we've already covered that already. we've already covered it.
It's a fad we had already.
No, it was just it was just an opinion on a fad. So it said, apart from the fact that engagement is a very poor proxy for learning, using fads and gimmicks to interest children reveals a more troubling belief that you somehow need to trick kids into being interested.
No, we haven't had that. That is interesting.
Which I think is really interesting. And clearly teachers have a job on their hands competing against the immediacy of mobile phones and the internet and a dwindling attention span. But the strategy of fighting fire with fire might not be the best approach here. While well-intentioned and indeed engaging, does this kind of approach lead to effective learning? And it's all about what are they learning? By all means, do something engaging, fun, if they are learning something from it. But if they're not gaining anything from it, it's a lot of effort for a teacher to put into something for not enough educational gain. And so that, like moving the desks, like, what were they gaining from that? Not enough for the time that was spent moving the desks around.
If I went to an inset day and I got to my desk and there was my name was on the desk and there was a little cupcake with a balloon in it, I'd love that. I'd be like, oh, thanks.
I feel very valued.
And maybe I just learned that I'm valued. So bless that teacher. Probably her aim was actually unconsciously to make them all feel special and valued.
And you know what? As a pastoral thing, I think that's lovely.
As a tutor, that's a nice tutor group.
Like that. Yeah,
for your
absolutely.
tutor group.
Like, I think that's lovely. And I don't want it to, like, I wasn't judging by telling that story at all. I think it's the time and effort that.
But hang on, were they helium balloons? Were they helium balloons?
Not a clue. Not a clue. Didn't even think to. I mean, it didn't say it in the blog. Didn't say it in the blog, so I don't know. But they're just lovely, like really thoughtful and time consuming.
Totally pointless.
Yeah, which is such a shame because but in the blog she said this. She absolutely acknowledged that and said, you know, that was when I was asked the question, what did they learn from it? I couldn't answer it.
Well, obviously,
I knew that they had
maybe if she'd put like a fact inside each cupcake that they had to. But then they could have choked to death, so you've got to be careful with these things anyway. Anyway, I was thinking, is it time for a word from our sponsors yet? Or
it is a final one before we close, absolutely.
Okay, so, right. So this show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit www.hachetteLearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Thank you so much. We had such a list of things that we had compiled. I might just before we finish, just throw a few out. Brain Gym, which I saw one blog declare as pseudoscience, which I thought was interesting. Anyone who remembers Brain Gym might.
What's Brain Gym?
It was a very fashionable thing. I can't remember if people had to like buy into it or whatever. But it was effectively about giving your brain a workout ready to learn.
Is it also we were talking about that mind mapping was a big thing when I was at school, and then it was like, oh, you can't call it mind mapping, you've now got to call it thought showering.
Yeah, brainstorm, thought shower, bubble diagram.
Oh, sorry, it went from mind mapping to brainstorming, and then they thought that was too aggressive, and then it became thought showering.
A rosemary on a name would smell as sweet.
Oh, why do we have and green pens being a more friendly colour to marking?
Green pen dialogic marking, yeah, there was that. Mocksteads, companies capitalising on people's fear of Ofsted and charging money to come in and do mocksteads. I don't know if that's still a thing that people do, but come on, not okay. Sonia learning up in a tweet. Kahoot's still
Cahoots was quite a big thing, and everyone used to just use it as the kids all just used to use it as an opportunity to have really rude names on the screen, and the teacher would say something like, whoever's called themselves poo on the teacher needs to delete that name.
Delete yourself or I will delete you.
Delete it now.
Cancelled. Done.
Cancelled.
And summing up learning in a tweet. Bloom's taxonomy.
Oh yes.
Rosenshine's principles of instruction, which again I agree with Rosenshine's principles of instruction, but it's just like it's become very faddy. Like we talked about it about 10 years ago, and we're quite obsessed with it, and then we haven't talked about it for ages, and then all of a sudden every course I go on, we're talking about Rosenshine's principles of instruction again.
Really, it's come around again.
Back in fashion. Okay.
Yeah.
But the concept is correct. Absolutely don't disagree with any of it, but it's just the way that it's used that ends up becoming quite fun. The purple pen of progress, that was another one. Popcorn reading.
What was the purple pen of progress? I didn't do that one.
I actually can't remember.
Can't remember
because I've always marked in purple, so it kind of passed me by, that one.
This has reminded me though that I do want to maybe
learning.
just occasionally, I know this sounds terrible, I actually do want, especially up to Christmas, just maybe sprinkle a little bit of silliness into some of the lessons up to Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, there's no harm in some of these things, as long as they're not the entire basis of your lesson, and if you're not doing any learning. I think there's still so much room, pose, pause, pounce, bounce as the concept of questioning. Again, a little bit faddy, but as a concept, it's like think, pair, share, isn't it? It's that idea that you're giving students the chance to think about something.
And one last rant from you. What is your opinion of hot seating, Liz?
Don't get me started. No, I don't have enough time. I don't know why. I've got such a passionate hatred of hot seating. That is a personal thing. There is no rhyme or reason to it. I just absolutely loathe it.
I don't think they really do it as much anymore, do they?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it
we
for a
haven't
while.
even talked about thinking hats. I'm so disappointed. One of my colleagues said about thinking hats, all the different coloured hats. They were great for displays. And again, concept, it was like...
What were the thinking hats as well?
I can't remember what they stood for, but you had a red one, a yellow one, a green one, a blue one, and they all were for different types of thinking. And
a dunce one.
Yeah.
A
That went out
Slytherin
a
one.
long time ago. Anyway, our time has ended. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I think I'm just going to end on a final thought, which was, again, something that I fundamentally agree with. And it was just a condensed idea of the fact that teaching is not a one-size-fits-all approach. There is no silver bullet to make everyone learn better. It's about a collective approach, looking at different things, looking at variety. And it is about catering for the students who are in front of you, looking at how are these people going to learn and not being caught up in what you've just been told to do in the last inset, because it's,
and also allowing them to feed back and respond. What works for you? What do you think of this lesson? What, giving them a little bit of autonomy. Yeah. No, we thought it was rubbish. And then you get a snowball thrown at your head.
And on that note,
ciao, ciao.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. If you're listening later on the podcast, thank you so much. Get in touch.
Oh, and let us know your fads, your pet peeves, favourite fads, what grinds your gears about inset days and so forth.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.